I believe there is one story in the world, and only one. It is the story of the never-ending contest in ourselves between good and evil. All novels, all poetry, all of human history is built on this single story. And it occurs to me that evil must constantly respawn, while virtue is immortal. Vice has always a new, fresh young face, while virtue is venerable as nothing else in the world is. Humans are caught in their lives, in their thoughts, in their hungers and ambitions, in their avarice and cruelty, and in their kindness and generosity too, in a net of good and evil. There is no other story. And today, we explore the greatest telling of that story ever put to paper. What if the most foundational stories, the ones that shape your entire moral universe, are based on a misunderstanding? A single word, mistranslated for millennia, that once corrected, could rewrite the very contract between humanity and its destiny. This is the central problem, the grand, earth-shaking question at the heart of John Steinbeck's monumental novel, East of Eden. Published in 1952, this is the book Steinbeck considered his masterpiece, the culmination of his life's work, into which he poured everything he had learned about people, about good, and about evil. On the surface, it is a sprawling family saga, tracing the intertwined destinies of two families, the Trasks and the Hamiltons, from the American Civil War to the end of World War I. It's a story rooted in the rich, fertile soil of the Salinas Valley in Northern California, a landscape that becomes a character in its own right, a new Eden, a land of promise and peril. But beneath this epic sweep of history lies a far deeper, more personal exploration. East of Eden is a direct, unflinching confrontation with the story of Cain and Abel, a story that Steinbeck argues is not just a biblical tale, but the story of every human who has ever lived. The book's grand promise is not just to entertain you with a story of love, betrayal, and generational conflict. Its promise is to hold up a mirror to your own soul. It promises to take the ancient war between light and darkness out of the realm of myth and place it directly into your hands, making you both the battlefield and the soldier. Steinbeck gives us a map of the human heart, its treacherous passages and its hidden glories, and at its center, he places a single powerful and life-altering word, Timshel. This is the journey we embark on today, a journey not just into a book, but into the very essence of what it means to be human. The heart of our story begins in the Salinas Valley, a long, narrow swale between two ranges of mountains in Northern California. Steinbeck paints it as a land of stark contrasts. To the east, the Gabilan Mountains were light gay mountains full of sun and loveliness, an invitation to life. To the west, the Santa Lucias were dark and brooding, unfriendly and dangerous. This valley, a place of rich soil and terrifying droughts, becomes the crucible for our two families, the Hamiltons and the Trasks. First, the Hamiltons. Samuel Hamilton, the patriarch, is an Irishman from a green country who settles on the driest, most barren land in the valley. He is a dreamer, an inventor, a man of laughter and poetry, but with no talent for making money. His hands are clever. He can build a well-boring rig from scratch, but he can never seem to find water on his own land. He is beloved by his neighbors, a comical genius whose mind soars with ideas. His wife, Lisa, is his opposite, a tight, hard little woman, humorless as a chicken, with a door Presbyterian mind and a finely developed sense of sin. She is the rock, the anchor, the force of reality that grounds Samuel's flights of fancy. Together, they have 9 children, a boisterous clan of thinkers and workers, sinners and saints, each a facet of their parents' complex union. Then there are the Trasks. The Trask story is forged not in dreams, but in lies and violence. The patriarch, Cyrus Trask, is a man who builds a monumental career as a military expert and a leader in the Grand Army of the Republic based on a service record that was brief and brutal, lasting only long enough for him to lose a leg. He was a private, but he convinces the world, and perhaps himself, that he was the trusted advisor to generals and presidents. He rules his family like a military unit, raising his 2 sons, Adam and Charles, with the harsh, unyielding discipline of the army he never truly knew. Adam, the elder son by just over a year, is gentle and shrinks from conflict. Charles is the opposite, assertive, competitive, a natural athlete with a will to win over others, which makes for success in the world. This difference creates a chasm between them. Cyrus openly favors Adam, yet his love is a punishing, testing force. He tells Adam, "I love you better. I always have." This may be a bad thing to tell you, but it's true. Else why would I have given myself the trouble of hurting you? This twisted love ignites a murderous jealousy in Charles. One evening, after Adam accidentally bests him in a game, Charles' hatred erupts. He beats Adam savagely, first with a bat and then with his fists, and later stalks him with a hatchet. This brutal event cements the Cain and Abel dynamic that will haunt the Trask family for generations. Adam, goaded by his father, serves a long and brutal term in the army, fighting Indians in the West, a life for which he has no taste. Charles remains on the farm, his loneliness and resentment festering, marked by a dark scar on his forehead from a moment of fury against an inanimate stone. When Cyrus dies, he leaves a fortune of over $100,000, money whose origins are a mystery, but which Cyrus' false history suggests may have been stolen. Charles is convinced his father was a thief, but Adam, in a strange act of faith for a man he never truly loved, refuses to believe it. "I don't believe he stole any money," Adam declares. "I believe in my father. Papers are no match at all for my faith in my father." This inheritance brings Adam back from his wanderings, but it is not the money that brings him to life. It is Cam. And here, the novel introduces one of the most chilling and unforgettable characters in American literature. Steinbeck tells us plainly, "I believe there are monsters born in the world to human parents. And just as there are physical monsters, can there not be mental or psychic monsters born? Kathy, he suggests, is one such creation, born without kindness or the potential of conscience. She has a face of pure innocence, with wide-set hazel eyes and golden hair, but behind that mask lies a void. As a child, she learns that human sexuality is the most disturbing impulse people have, and she learns to manipulate it with cold, calculated precision. At 10 years old, she orchestrates a situation where two older boys are accused of assaulting her. She ties her own hands with a rope, and when discovered, plays the terrified victim so perfectly that the boys are brutally whipped and sent to a house of correction, their protestations of innocence dismissed as despicable lies. As a teenager, she drives a young, devout Latin teacher to suicide after a secret affair, then plants the rumor that he had been in some kind of trouble in Boston, deflecting all suspicion from herself. Later, after a failed attempt to run away from home ends in a whipping from her father, she burns her family's house down, killing both of her parents, and vanishes. Kathy becomes a prostitute, not out of desperation, but as a calculated career move. She falls into the hands of a whoremaster named Mr. Edwards, a cold and orderly man. But Kathy's unique brand of monstrousness captivates him, and he, a man who knows everything about women, falls hopelessly in love with her. He sets her up in a little brick house, showering her with gifts. She, in turn, plays on his love and his insecurity, tormenting him, stealing from him, and slowly driving him mad. Her control slips only once, when he forces her to drink champagne. The alcohol unlocks a torrent of pure venom. "You fat slug," she snarls. "What do you know about me? Do you think I can't read every rotten thought you ever had?" She then smashes the glass and jams the ragged edge against his cheek. Eventually, Edwards discovers the truth of her past, that she is a murderess. His love curdles into a murderous rage. He takes her to a secluded spot and beats her nearly to death, leaving her broken body by the side of a road. It is in this state that Adam Trask finds her. Half dead and crawling up his porch steps, she is a bundle of rags and mud. Adam, a man adrift in his own gray life, is transformed. He sees not the monster, but a helpless, wounded creature. He takes her in, nurses her, and a kind of glory lights up his mind. He pours his entire being into her, and nothing Kathy did or said could warp Adam's Kathy. He marries her. And when she becomes pregnant and tries to abort the child with a knitting needle, Adam accepts her story that she is terrified of passing on epilepsy, which she claims runs in her family. He pours all of his inheritance and his newfound energy into building a new Eden for her on a beautiful ranch in the Salinas Valley. But Kathy feels only trapped. She endures the pregnancy and the birth of twin boys, delivered by Samuel Hamilton. During the agonizing labor, she bites Samuel's hand to the bone, and afterward, when presented with her newborn sons, she says coldly, "I don't want them." A week later, she tells Adam she is leaving. When he tries to stop her, she shoots him in the shoulder and walks out of his life, leaving him bleeding on the floor with the cries of his infant sons echoing in the house. This is the wreckage from which the story's central question arises. Adam falls into a decade-long stupor, a gray sleep of sorrow, unable to even give his sons names. The boys are raised by the Chinese servant, Li, a man of profound wisdom and kindness. It is Samuel Hamilton who finally brings Adam back to life. He confronts Adam, goads him, even strikes him, forcing him to face his duty to his sons. "You have them by some strange and lovely dispensation," he tells Adam. And so, the three men Adam, Samuel, and Lee sit down to perform the most human of acts, to give the boys names, and in doing so, to understand their own story. This brings us to the philosophical heart of the book. As they struggle to choose names, Lee reveals a secret scholarly project he has undertaken for years. Troubled by the story of Cain and Abel, particularly God's rejection of Cain's offering, and the line that follows, Lee sought out a group of wise, elderly Chinese scholars in San Francisco. These men, for 2 years, dedicated themselves to learning Hebrew simply to understand the true meaning of a single word in the 16th verse of the 4th chapter of Genesis. The King James Bible says, when God speaks to Cain about sin, "Thou shalt rule over him." It's a promise of inevitable victory. The American Standard Version says, "Do thou rule over him," which is a command. But the old Chinese sages, after their exhaustive study, discovered the original Hebrew word was Timshel. And what does Timshel mean? Lee explains it with triumphant passion. "Thou mayest," he says, "thou mayest rule over sin." This, he argues, is the most important word in the world. It is not a promise, not an order, but a choice. That says the way is open, Lee proclaims. That throws it right back on a man. For if thou mayest, it is also true that thou mayest not, don't you see? Why, that makes a man great. That gives him stature with the gods. For in his weakness and his filth, and his murder of his brother, he is still the great choice. He can choose his course and fight it through and win. This is the core of Steinbeck's novel. The story of Cain and Abel, the story of rejection, anger, crime, and guilt, is everyone's story. And at the heart of that story is Timshel, the freedom, the burden, the glory of human choice. The rest of the novel is the playing out of this principle in the next generation. The twin boys are named Caleb and Aaron, Cal and Aaron. Aaron, like his father, is beautiful and loved, but he is drawn to an impossible, fragile purity. He creates an idealized image of the world, of his dead mother, and of his sweetheart Abra. He cannot bear the thought of ugliness or sin. Cal, the dark-haired twin, is shrewd, lonely, and secretive. He is convinced he has inherited his mother's evil. He tells Lee, "I don't want to be mean." He craves his father's love but feels it is directed entirely at Aaron. This dynamic sets the stage for a modern retelling of the Cain and Abel story. Years later, during World War I, Adam loses his remaining fortune in a misguided attempt to ship iced lettuce across the country. Aaron is crushed by the public failure and the shame of their newfound poverty. Cal, however, sees an opportunity. He secretly goes into partnership with Will Hamilton, taking advantage of the wartime demand for beans, and in a short time, he makes back all the money his father lost, and more, a fortune of $15,000. He plans to present this money to his father at Thanksgiving, a gift he hopes will finally buy him the love he so desperately craves. The climax is devastating. At Thanksgiving dinner, Cal presents the money to Adam. But Adam, now a member of the draft board, is horrified. "I send boys out," he says, his voice cold. "I sign my name and they go out, and some will die. Son, do you think I could take a profit on that?" He rejects the gift, telling Cal he would have been happier if his son had simply given him a good life. The rejection shatters Cal. In a fit of vengeful agony, he takes his brother to see their mother, Kate, at her monstrous whorehouse in Salinas. The revelation destroys Aaron. His idealized world crumbles. He enlists in the army and is sent to the war in France, where he is killed. The news of Aaron's death strikes Adam with a final, massive stroke, leaving him paralyzed and near death himself. In the final, heartbreaking scene, Cal stands before his dying father, crushed by the weight of his own guilt. "I'm responsible for Aaron's death and for your sickness," he confesses. "I'm a murderer." It is then that Lee, the wise servant, begs Adam to give his only remaining son his blessing, to free him from the cycle of guilt. With his last ounce of strength, Adam raises his hand and whispers the final, most important word, Timshel. So what makes East of Eden radically different, a book that stands apart even among the giants of literature? It is Steinbeck's audacity. He takes the oldest story in our cultural DNA, the first murder, the first rejection, and dares to say we've been reading it wrong. He doesn't just tell a story, he performs a live, open-heart surgery on our most foundational myths. While other great family sagas chronicle the rise and fall of fortunes and the complexities of love and society, East of Eden is charting the geography of the human soul. It's a book that argues with the Bible, that puts God and man on equal footing in the great struggle for the future. The unique feeling it offers is one of profound, terrifying responsibility. It strips away every excuse, ancestry, environment, fate, and leaves you standing naked with your own power to choose. This book is for the reader who isn't afraid of the big questions. It is for the person who has looked in the mirror and seen both a stranger and a familiar, a capacity for light and a shadow of darkness. It is for anyone who has ever felt the sting of rejection, the poison of jealousy, or the desperate, aching need to be loved. This book is for the seeker who believes that a novel can be more than an escape, that it can be a tool for understanding, a map for navigation. It is absolutely not for the reader looking for a simple plot with clear heroes and villains. There are no easy answers here. The characters are flawed, beautiful, terrible, and achingly real. The line between good and evil is not a wall, but a razor's edge that runs through the center of every human heart. The single most valuable takeaway is the word Timshel. It is a gift and a burden. It means that you are not destined to repeat the mistakes of your parents or your ancestors. It means that no matter what darkness you carry within you, the path to redemption is always open. You are not shackled by fate. You are free to choose. And that choice is the very definition of your humanity. This summary has only been the echo of a great thunder. To truly feel the earth shake, you have to stand in the storm yourself. John Steinbeck did not write East of Eden to tell you a story. He wrote it to tell you your story. The Trasks and the Hamiltons are just the vessels for an exploration that is deeply, personally yours. To read this book is to accept an invitation to examine your own life, your own choices, and the eternal war that rages within. This is more than a novel. It is a scripture for the modern soul. The journey of Adam and Cal and Aaron is a profound one, but it is only a reflection of the journey you must take yourself. The map is here, but the territory is you. So I urge you, do not let this be the end of it. Follow the link in the description, buy the book, open its pages, and let the grand, terrible, and beautiful story of what it means to be human wash over you. And remember, always the choice is yours. Timshel.